Dear Thầy, dear Sangha, welcome back. This time we will go through the chapter 5 of the book, Transformation at the Base, together in 3 different parts. And in this presentation we'll do part 1. In the past presentation on the subject, the way of practice, I used the same book, and I learned recently that the book has been re-edited and published under the new title, Understanding Our Mind. This new title for me is much more appropriate, as it offered to help us understand how the mind works through the understanding of the nature of consciousness. And as a Vietnamese Zen master in the 12th century said, Master Thường Chiếu said, when we understand how our mind works, the practice becomes easier. The book Transformation at the Base contains 50 verses that can be seen as a kind of roadmap to the path of practice. Through meditation, the Buddha came to understand his own mind, and for more than 2,000 years, his followers have learned how to take care of their own mind and body in order to obtain transformation and peace. The 50 verses represent the essence, the summation of the most important streams of Buddhist philosophy, from the Abhidharma teachings of the Pali Canon to later Mahayana teaching such as the Avatamsaka Sutra. After looking through the new book to acquire, and I think we can do it through Parallax Press, and waiting for having a copy of this book, I am devoting myself to make up the next 3 presentations dedicated fully to the description of the nature of reality, as illustrated by verses 31 through 38. These verses present the notions and the concepts that should be used only as a means to understand the world we see and experience. And I simply take this opportunity to present my deep gratitude to Thầy for his detailed and comprehensive explanations throughout the book. So we will start with stand number 31st. It is about the consciousness. So I will read it. Consciousness always includes subject and object, self and other, inside and outside, are all creations of the conceptual mind. And this is the explanation taken from Thay's book. First of all, the first 2 lines of this verse represent the basic teaching we need to grasp before we can go further in our understanding of the teachings and our daily practice. Here, consciousness stands for perception and cognition. Perception and cognition are always the perception and cognition of something. There cannot be a perception that is not a perception of something. It is naive to think that consciousness is something that exists independently, that is already there and we can simply pick it up like a garden tool and use it to recognize an object. The Buddha said that consciousness has 3 parts, as we will see later: perceiver or subject, perceived, or object, and wholeness. Subject and object work together simultaneously to manifest consciousness. There cannot be consciousness without an object. Consciousness is always consciousness of something. Thinking is always thinking of something. Anger is always being angry at someone or something. There cannot be object without subject or subject without object. Both subject and object inter-are, and they are based on wholeness. When we are not mindful, mindfulness is only a seed, not a manifestation. The capacity to be mindful is available, but it is not functioning yet. For mindfulness to manifest, it has to have an object. We are mindful of our breathing, of the person sitting in front of us, or of a flower. Just as consciousness is always consciousness of something, mindfulness is the same. It's always mindfulness of something. Seeing, hearing, thinking, knowing, understanding, and imagining are all consciousness, and consciousness always includes both subject and object. In the teaching that we learn here, consciousness means the capacity to cognize, to perceive, and to discriminate. According to this teaching, consciousness has many different functions. So it would not be correct to say that there is one consciousness. There are as many consciousnesses as there are functions of consciousness. And going further to the second part of the stand 31, we can say self and other, inside and outside, are concepts. Concepts are produced by our consciousness using the sword of concept. We cut really true reality into pieces and create boundaries between things from the point of view of ordinary perception. Things exist independent of one another. We see the cloud existing outside of the rose. By using the keys of impermanence and non-self, we can open the door of reality and see that the cloud does not lie outside the rose, nor does the rose lie outside the cloud. If there is no cloud, there is no rain. If there is no rain, there is no cloud. The rose decomposes, the water in it evaporates, and returns to the cloud. Looking deeply this way, our concepts about boundary disappear, and we can see the cloud in the rose and the rose in the cloud. So let's move to the next stand. Stand 32. Consciousness has three parts: perceiver, perceived, and wholeness. All seeds and mental formations are the same. The division here are only a framework designed to help us understand the reality of consciousness. Once we understand, we can stop dividing. Suppose I draw a circle and I divide the circle in two by a vertical line, for example. The circle is a base, which is consciousness, and from that base are manifested the subject and the object of consciousness. But these two halves never leave the whole of the circle, just as the wave never leaves the water. If you think that any one part exists separately from the other part, you have been thinking not correctly. Consciousness has three parts: perceiver, perceived, and wholeness. The subject is the first aspect of perception. The second is the object of perception. The third aspect, the base of both subject and object, is wholeness. Subject and object are born at the same time. When the snail sends up its antenna, he sends up both at the same time. Consciousness can manifest or fail to manifest depending on whether both the perceiver and the perceived aspects manifest. When consciousness manifests, we say it exists. When it does not manifest, we say it does not exist. But this idea of existing and non-existing causes us to suffer. The subject of perception manifests at the very moment that the object of perception manifests, and neither is possible without the base. Wholeness is everything. And this is true for the 8 consciousnesses and for each seed and mental formation as well. All seeds and mental formations also have these 3 elements: subject, object, and the base, because they all belong to consciousness. Every mental formation, every object of perception, every seed within our consciousness has these 3 aspects, and these aspects cannot be separated from one another. They can only coexist. Lacking any one, the other 2 cannot be. Voila. I will stop here and wishing you all the best. Stay strong, stay safe, and looking forward for the next session of PowerPoint presentation. Vin is bowing out, and thank you all for your listening.